The heavy Seattle rain hammered against the massive glass windows of Declan's private home office. The room was dark, except for the harsh blue light glowing from his open laptop on the heavy oak desk. Maya stood completely still, staring at the screen. Her chest tightened so hard she could barely breathe. She only came into the office to look for a pen to write a grocery list. But when she bumped the expensive wireless mouse, the computer screen woke up, showing a totally unprotected financial ledger. She saw her sister's name first, Chloe Johnson. Next to it was another name, Troy Evans. Maya leaned closer, her hands shaking violently. There were dozens of wire transfers listed on the screen. $10,000, $20,000. The dates went back over a whole year, and the money was coming directly from a shell company owned by Declan's grandfather's trust. "No," Maya whispered. Her voice sounded thin and broken in the quiet, dark room. "No, this is impossible." But the math was right there. Troy did not just stumble into a rich woman. He was paid to drain Maya's accounts. Chloe was paid to encourage him. Declan's family bankrolled the entire betrayal, perfectly timing the fake cheating scandal to ruin Maya's wedding day. They set her up so she would be desperate enough to sign a marriage contract with a total stranger. A heavy footstep sounded behind her. The thick office door clicked shut. "You should not be in here, Maya," Declan said. His voice was low, rough, and completely cold. Maya spun around. He was standing in the shadows by the door, wearing dark sweatpants and a tight black t-shirt. He looked massive. He looked dangerous. The mask of the polite business CEO was completely gone. "You paid them," Maya choked out, pointing a shaking finger at the laptop screen. "You paid Troy to ruin my life." Declan did not blink. He slowly walked fully into the room, his bare feet making no sound on the hardwood floor. "I bought an asset. I needed a wife with a perfect background. And more importantly, I needed a wife with a level 5 federal security clearance at the airport. My uncle's smuggling routes are getting blocked by the feds. I needed someone inside the radar tower who could blind the system when my cargo planes land. You were the perfect target." Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. He wasn't just a harsh billionaire. He was a criminal. He was part of a ruthless Korean Mafia family. "You are a monster," she whispered, her eyes filling with hot, angry tears. "I am a businessman," Declan corrected smoothly. He stepped right up to her, his tall body trapping her against the edge of the desk. He reached out and grabbed her chin, his large fingers digging into her skin, forcing her to look up into his dark, cold eyes. "And you are my wife. You are going to do exactly what I tell you, or I will let my uncle handle you his way. And trust me, his way involves a lot of blood." Is your heart racing waiting to see what Maya does now that she knows the terrifying truth? Don't just cross your fingers and ask for a part 2 in the comments. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, as it helps the algorithm push more videos like this to you. Also, let me know where you are watching from, or rate this video 110 in the comments below. If you want to take absolute control of this story, join the exclusive Timeless K-Love membership on Gumroad. Our members don't just ask for the next chapter, they demand it. You get the exclusive power to decide which cliffhangers get resolved first. Support the channel by grabbing me a coffee or becoming a member through the link in the description and pinned comment, and take control of the romance. Now, let's get back to the story. Maya slapped his hand away from her face. She hit him hard, the loud smack echoing in the quiet office. Her chest heaved up and down. She was terrified, but she was too angry to care. "Don't you ever touch me like that again," Maya hissed. She stepped to the side, putting distance between her and his massive body. "You set me up. You bought my life. I am going to the police, Declan. I am going to the FBI. I will tell them everything about your shell companies and your smuggling routes." Declan did not look angry that she hit him. He just slowly rubbed his jaw, a dark, mocking smile touching his lips. "Go ahead, call the FBI. What exactly are you going to tell them? That your husband gave your cheating ex-boyfriend some money. That is not illegal, Maya. And if you try to mention the smuggling, my lawyers will bury you. I have judges on my payroll. I have police captains eating out of my hand. You will look like a crazy, bitter wife." He walked over to the desk and calmly closed the laptop. The blue light vanished, leaving the room dark again, lit only by the gray storm outside. "You signed a non-disclosure agreement," Declan continued, turning back to face her. If you breathe a word of this to anyone, you lose the house I bought back for you. You lose your bank accounts. You will be on the street, and Troy will be laughing at you. Maya wrapped her arms around her stomach. She felt sick. He had trapped her perfectly. He built a cage made of money and legal papers, and she walked right into it without asking a single question. "What do you want from me?" Maya asked, her voice dropping to a defeated whisper. "Tonight, at exactly 10 o'clock, a private cargo plane is going to enter your airspace," Declan ordered. His voice was all business now, sharp and demanding. "It will not have a registered flight plan. It will show up on your radar as an unidentified bogey. You are going to manually delete its radar tag. You are going to clear a path for it to land on the private south runway, and you are going to tell the other controllers that it was just a system glitch. Do you understand?" "If I do that, I am breaking federal law," Maya argued. "I could go to federal prison for 20 years for messing with a radar track." "If you don't do it, my uncle will take control of the family board tomorrow," Declan said, stepping closer again. The smell of his cedar cologne mixed with the dark tension in the room. "My uncle is a traditional K-Mafia boss. He likes violence. He likes making examples out of people. If that plane does not land with my cargo, he will kill me. And then he will kill you just to clean up the loose ends. Clear the plane, Maya. Keep us both alive." Declan walked past her, his shoulder brushing heavily against hers. He opened the office door and walked down the wide hallway, leaving her alone in the dark. Maya stood there for a long time. The sound of the rain hitting the glass sounded like bullets. She thought she survived the worst day of her life when she left Troy at the altar. But she was wrong. The real nightmare was just starting. 4 hours later, Maya drove her old car to the airport. She did not take Declan's driver. She needed to be alone. The sky over Seattle was pitch black, thick with heavy rain clouds and violently swirling winds. It was the perfect weather to hide a smuggling plane. She walked through the employee entrance, swiping her badge with a shaking hand. She took the elevator up to the control tower. The radar room was dark and freezing cold, just like always. Her supervisor, Marcus, was pacing back and forth behind the row of glowing screens, looking stressed. "You are late, Johnson," Marcus grumbled, not looking up from his clipboard. "Get on your screen. The weather is garbage tonight. We have planes stacked up in holding patterns for miles." "Sorry, Marcus," Maya said quietly. She sat down in her heavy chair and pulled her headset over her ears. She looked at her screen. It was covered in dozens of glowing green dots. Each dot was a massive commercial jet filled with innocent people. Mothers, fathers, children. She was responsible for keeping them safe. And in exactly 1 hour, she was supposed to betray all of them by letting a Mafia smuggling plane fly blindly through their airspace. She pressed her trackball, opening her radio channel. "Delta 29er, descend to 6,000 feet. Turn right heading 040. "Descending to 6, heading 040, the pilot replied through the static. The next hour dragged by in slow, agonizing torture. Every time the clock on the wall ticked closer to 10 o'clock, Maya's stomach twisted into a tighter knot. Her hands were sweating. She kept glancing at the edge of her radar screen, waiting for Declan's illegal plane to appear. But at 9:45, everything went completely wrong. Maya's radar screen flickered. The green dots jumped to the left, then jumped to the right. A loud burst of high-pitched static blasted through her headset, making her flinch and rip the headphones off her ears. "What the hell is that?" Sarah, the controller sitting next to her, yelled. Maya stared at her screen. The real planes, the ones she was tracking, suddenly vanished. In their place, a dozen fake ghost planes appeared on the radar, all heading straight toward each other. "Marcus," Maya shouted, standing up from her chair. "My screen is totally jammed. I lost all civilian transponders." Marcus ran over, his face turning pale. He looked at Sarah's screen. "It's not just you. The whole sector is down. Someone is hijacking our radio frequencies. We are completely blind." Maya's blood ran cold. This was not a system glitch. This was an attack. A loud, mechanical voice suddenly spoke through the main overhead speakers in the radar room. It was not a pilot. It was a computer-generated voice, cold and flat. "Attention, Seattle Tower. We currently control your frequencies. If any planes attempt to land, we will scramble their instruments and force them into the ground. Ground all outbound flights. Keep the airspace open until our demands are met." Panic exploded in the room. Controllers were shouting, desperately trying to switch to backup radios. Marcus grabbed a red emergency phone on the wall, screaming for the airport police. Maya stood frozen. She knew exactly what was happening. Declan told her his uncle was a traditional, violent boss who wanted to take control of the family. The uncle did not wait for the board meeting. He hired a mercenary to hack the airport. He was holding thousands of innocent civilians hostage in the sky just to prove that Declan could not protect his own smuggling routes. The uncle was using Maya's workplace as a weapon. Before Maya could process the horror of the situation, her personal cell phone vibrated violently in her jeans pocket. She pulled it out. The caller ID said unknown number. She assumed it was Declan calling to give her new orders. She answered it and pressed the phone to her ear, hiding beneath the loud noise of the panicked control room. "Declan, your uncle hacked the tower," Maya whispered desperately. "The airspace is locked." "I don't give a shit about an uncle," a slimy, familiar voice said through the phone. Maya stopped breathing. Her entire body went totally rigid. "Troy," she gasped. "Hello, Maya," Troy said. He sounded completely different than the man she left at the church. He did not sound defeated. He sounded manic and cruel. "Did you really think your new rich husband could just erase me? Did you think you could just throw me on the street like garbage and I wouldn't fight back?" "How are you calling me?" Maya demanded, walking backward into the dark corner of the room so no one could hear her. "Declan wiped your phone. He wiped your hard drives." "He wiped my local drives," Troy laughed. It was an ugly, scratching sound. "But I am not stupid, Maya. I knew those pictures were my insurance policy. I hired a guy, a dark web data broker. It cost me every penny of credit I had left, but he reconstructed the deleted cloud files. I have the pictures, Maya. Every single dirty, private photo you ever sent me." Maya closed her eyes. The dark room seemed to spin around her. "What do you want, Troy?" "I want $2 million, Troy demanded, his voice dropping into a vicious sneer. "And I want it transferred to an offshore account in the next 20 minutes. I know what is happening at the airport right now. I am watching the news. The feds are going to be crawling all over that control tower looking for the hackers. If you don't pay me, I am going to send those pictures to the FAA director, the FBI, and every news station in Seattle. Your perfect little public reputation will be completely shattered. You will never work again." "I don't have $2 million, Maya hissed. "You know I don't." "Then ask your billionaire husband," Troy shot back. "Tell him to pay up or I ruin his fake little wife. 20 minutes, Maya. Tick-tock." The line went dead. Maya slowly lowered the phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped it. The noise in the radar room was deafening. Marcus was screaming at the military liaison on the red phone. Sarah was crying as she frantically typed on her keyboard, trying to find a clear radio channel to warn the planes flying blind in the storm. Maya was completely trapped. She was backed into a dark, terrifying corner. If she broke her non-disclosure agreement and told the FBI the truth right now, she could expose the mercenary hack. She could point the feds straight to Declan's uncle and save the hundreds of innocent people flying in circles above the city. But if she did that, she would destroy Declan's empire. Declan would lose everything, and his lawyers would crush her into dust. She would lose her house, her money, and Troy would still release the photos, ruining her completely. But her other choice was a descent into pure hell. If she called Declan and told him about Troy's blackmail, Declan would not pay the money. He would find Troy. He would unleash the full, bloody violence of his Mafia family. He would execute Troy and his own uncle to protect his empire. If she chose that path, she would be giving permission for murder. She would not be a hostage anymore. She would be an active participant. She would be stepping over the line to become the ruthless, untouchable queen of a smuggling empire. Maya looked at her dark radar screen. She looked at the massive, heavy diamond ring sitting on her left hand. The storm raged outside the glass, and the clock on the wall started ticking down her 20 minutes. Maya stared at her dark phone screen. The plastic case felt heavy in her sweating hand. The radar room was a complete disaster zone. Marcus was screaming into a red emergency phone, demanding the military send jets to find the hacker. Sarah was crying openly at her station, her hands shaking so badly she kept dropping her computer mouse. Alarms were blaring a high, piercing beep that hurt Maya's ears. Out the window, the heavy rain completely blocked the lights of the city. 30 massive airplanes were flying in circles above them, completely blind. Thousands of innocent people were sitting in their seats, totally unaware that a Korean mafia boss was using their lives as a cheap distraction. And Troy was sitting in some dark room, smiling at his computer screen. He thought he was a genius. He thought he finally found a way to break Maya completely. He thought he could steal $2 million and walk away to live a rich, easy life. He still thought Maya was the same scared, lonely girl who cooked his dinner and paid his rent for 5 years. Maya looked down at her left hand. The massive square diamond caught the flashing red emergency lights of the radar room. Declan put that ring on her finger. He told her she belonged to him. He warned her that his world was dangerous and bloody, but he also told her that he would destroy anyone who tried to hurt her. If she called the FBI right now, the government would flood the airport. They would take hours to track the hack. Planes would run out of gas and fall out of the sky. And because Maya did not have $2 million, Troy would release those private pictures. Her career would be over. Her name would be dragged through the mud on every news channel in the country. She would lose everything, and the bad guys would win. Fuck that, Maya whispered to herself. She was done being a victim. She was done playing by the rules while everyone else used her as a stepping stone. If Declan's family wanted to drag her into the dark underworld, then she was going to rule the dark. Maya unlocked her phone and dialed Declan's private number. He answered on the first ring. "Is the package clear?" he asked. His voice was completely focused and demanding. "No," Maya said. Her voice was totally calm. It was ice cold. The sound of her own voice surprised her, but it felt right. "Your uncle didn't wait for the board meeting, Declan. He made a move. He hired a mercenary hacker. The entire radar tower is jammed. My screens are flooded with fake targets, and he locked us out of the radio frequencies. The whole sector is blind. He is holding 30 civilian planes hostage." A dead, terrifying silence fell over the phone line. Then, Declan let out a low, vicious string of curses. "That stupid old man. He is using your airspace to force my hand. He is trying to bring the federal government down on my head to ruin my business." "It gets worse," Maya said, stepping further into the dark corner of the room so Marcus could not hear her. "Troy just called my cell phone." "How?" Declan growled. The sound was deep and violent. "My team destroyed his entire digital life. He has nothing." "He hired a dark web data broker," Maya explained quickly. "They reconstructed his deleted cloud files. He still has the pictures, Declan, every single one of them. He wants $2 million in 20 minutes, or he sends them to the press and the FAA director. He knows about the tower hack. He is watching the news. He is using your uncle's distraction to trap me, knowing the feds are about to show up." The sound of heavy glass shattering echoed through the phone. Declan had thrown something against a wall. "I am going to rip his fucking head off," Declan snarled. His breathing was heavy and fast. "Declan, listen to me," Maya said. She pressed the phone hard against her ear. "If I call the authorities, planes will crash tonight, and Troy will ruin me. I cannot let that happen. But you told me what your family does. You told me how your uncle handles things." "Maya," Declan said, his voice dropping into a dark, rough warning. "You know exactly what you are asking me to do. If I handle this my way, it will be a bloodbath. I will find Troy. I will find the mercenary. I will find my uncle. And none of them will survive the night. But if I do this, if I kill them for you, there is no going back. You cannot pretend to be an innocent civilian anymore. You are giving me permission to murder. You are stepping fully into the dark with me. You will be my wife in every single way, until the day you die." Maya closed her eyes. She pictured Troy laughing at her in the church. She pictured her adoptive mother calling her worthless. She pictured the flashing alarms in the control tower. She took a deep breath and she let the last piece of her old, weak self die. "Find them, Declan," Maya whispered into the phone. "I want them dead. Kill them all." A low, dark sound of pure pleasure rumbled in Declan's chest. "That is my good girl. That is my queen. Stay at your screen, Maya. I will have my tech team track the mercenaries' signal and send my men to clean the room. Hold those planes in the sky. Give me 15 minutes. "I will hold them," Maya promised. "Hurry." She hung up the phone and shoved it deep into her jeans pocket. The fear that had been choking her for the last hour vanished completely. A hot, sharp rush of adrenaline pumped through her veins. She felt powerful. She felt untouchable. She walked quickly out of the dark corner and stepped right into the middle of the chaotic radar room. Marcus was still yelling at a military liaison on the red phone, his face bright red and dripping with nervous sweat. "Marcus, shut up and hang up that phone right now," Maya yelled. Her voice cracked like a whip over the noise of the room. Every single controller stopped what they were doing and stared at her. Marcus froze, the red phone halfway to his ear. "Excuse me, Johnson. Have you lost your damn mind? We have a catastrophic failure." "Screaming at the military is not going to land those planes," Maya said. She walked over to her station and pointed a firm finger at Sarah. "The main radios are jammed, but the emergency low-frequency guard channel is analog. It is ancient technology. The hacker probably didn't bother to block it because nobody uses it anymore. Sarah, switch your headset to 121.5 megahertz right now." Sarah wiped her wet cheeks and frantically clicked the heavy plastic buttons on her radio console. She pressed her headset tighter to her ears. Her eyes went wide. "Oh my God, Maya, I have static. I have a clean line." "Broadcast a blind warning to all aircraft in our sector," Maya ordered. She sat down in her heavy chair and pulled her own headset on. "Tell them we have a system failure. Order every plane to maintain their current altitude and circle outside the storm boundary. Nobody drops below 10,000 feet until we get our screens back. We keep them separated by height." "How are we going to get the screens back?" Marcus asked. He dropped the red phone and walked over to stand behind her. He looked completely lost. "The IT department said the hack is coming from an outside source. It is military-grade jamming. We can't stop it from here." "It is being handled," Maya said flatly. She kept her eyes locked on her dark, useless radar screen. "Just give it 15 minutes. Get on the backup radios and start calling flight numbers." For the next 10 minutes, the room was a tense, agonizing waiting game. The storm outside raged harder, shaking the tall glass windows of the control tower. Maya spoke clearly and calmly into her microphone, using the crackling emergency channel to talk to the panicked pilots. She used her memory of where the planes were before the hack to guess their locations. She kept her voice steady, hiding the fact that her husband was currently hunting down the men who caused this. Marcus paced behind her chair. He watched her closely. He looked at the massive diamond ring flashing on her hand every time she reached for the keyboard. "You know something, Johnson," Marcus said suspiciously, narrowing his tired eyes. "You are way too calm for a woman who is about to have 30 plane crashes on her record. What did you mean when you said it was being handled?" Maya ignored him. She kept her eyes straight ahead. The clock on the wall ticked slowly. 12 minutes, 13 minutes. At exactly 14 minutes, Maya's cell phone vibrated violently against her leg. She kept one hand on her radio button and used her other hand to pull the phone out of her pocket. She looked at the screen. It was a single text message from Declan. "Done." The very second she read the word, her radar screen flickered violently. A loud burst of static hissed through the room, making everyone wince. Then, the fake green ghost planes vanished completely. The thick lines of interference wiped away like water on glass. The real green dots, the actual commercial airplanes, popped back onto the dark screen, exactly where they were supposed to be. "The main radios are back," Sarah screamed with joy. "I have full radar contact. The hack is gone." The entire radar room erupted into loud cheers. Controllers clapped each other on the back. Marcus let out a massive sigh of relief and leaned his heavy hands on the back of Maya's chair. "I don't know how the hell it fixed that so fast, but thank God. Good work, Johnson. Now let's get these planes on the ground safely." Maya did not cheer. She stared at the glowing green dots, her heart pounding a slow, heavy rhythm against her ribs. She knew exactly how the hack was stopped. The mercenary was dead. Declan's men found the source of the signal and put a bullet in the computer, and the person sitting behind it. Her phone buzzed again in her hand. It was an incoming call from Declan. Maya stood up from her chair. "Take my screen, Sarah. I need to use the restroom." She did not wait for an answer. She walked quickly out of the radar room, pushing through the heavy metal doors into the quiet, brightly lit hallway. She walked into the empty women's locker room and locked the door behind her. The smell of cheap air freshener filled her nose. She answered the phone and pressed it to her ear. "Did you find them?" "The mercenary is dead," Declan's voice came through the speaker. He sounded out of breath. The background noise was strange, the sound of rain hitting a tin roof and a wet, heavy dripping sound. "My uncle's men tried to protect the hacking equipment. We killed them all. The airspace is yours again." "And Troy?" Maya asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "He was hiding in a cheap motel near the shipping docks," Declan said. A cold, cruel amusement colored his tone. "He thought he was a genius. He thought a simple VPN would hide his location from my security team. We tracked his IP address in 3 minutes. My men kicked the door down before he even finished typing his second threat to you." "Is he?" Maya swallowed hard, suddenly feeling a tight knot in her throat. "Is he dead?" "Not yet," Declan said. "He is on his knees in front of me. He is bleeding on the dirty carpet. Do you want to say goodbye to your old life, Maya?" Maya leaned her back against the cold metal lockers. She thought she would feel sick. She thought she would feel guilty for ordering a man to die. But she felt absolutely nothing for him. "Put him on speaker," Maya demanded. There was a rustling sound on the line, followed by a loud, wet thud. Someone kicked Troy. "Maya," Troy screamed. His voice was high and broken. He was sobbing uncontrollably. "Maya, please, tell him to let me go. I was just angry. I didn't mean any of it. I was just jealous that you got married to a rich guy." Maya listened to his pathetic, crying voice. He sounded so incredibly small. This was the man who terrorized her for 5 years. This was the man who made her feel ugly and worthless. "You told me I was just a bank account, Troy," Maya said, her voice echoing coldly off the locker room walls. "You told Chloe I was too weak to fight back. You were wrong." "I was wrong. I'm so sorry," Troy begged, coughing loudly. "I'll delete the pictures right now. I'll never talk to you again. Just please, Maya, don't let him kill me. I don't want to die." Maya looked at her reflection in the dirty locker room mirror. She saw the expensive designer clothes Declan bought her. She saw the huge diamond ring. She saw a woman who was finally taking control of her own destiny, no matter how much blood it cost. "You should have stayed out of my way," Maya said smoothly. "Maya, wait now, please." A loud, deafening gunshot exploded through the phone speaker. The sound was so sharp it made Maya flinch, her shoulders jumping against the lockers. Then there was total silence on Troy's end. Just the sound of the rain hitting the roof. "It is done," Declan's voice came back on the line. It was smooth, calm, and entirely dominant. "The laptop is destroyed. The pictures are gone forever. My uncle is bleeding out on the floor right next to him. You are safe now, my beautiful queen." Maya slowly pulled the phone away from her ear. The screen went totally dark in her hand. The only sound in the locker room was the low hum of the air conditioner and the steady, heavy drumming of the rain against the outside walls. She stood frozen for a long minute, waiting for the guilt to hit her. She waited to feel sick. She waited to cry. She just gave an execution order. A man she slept next to for 5 years was dead on a dirty motel floor, and she was the one who pulled the strings. She closed her eyes and took a slow, deep breath. Nothing. She felt absolutely nothing for him. No guilt, no sadness, just a massive, empty space where all her fear used to be. For years, Troy was a heavy chain around her neck, dragging her down, threatening to ruin her if she ever tried to stand up for herself. Now, the chain was broken. Declan shattered it with a single bullet. Maya walked over to the row of sinks. She turned on the metal faucet and let the freezing cold water run over her hands. She splashed water onto her pale face, washing away the nervous sweat. She grabbed a rough paper towel and dried her skin. When she looked up at the mirror, the woman staring back at her looked completely different. Her dark eyes were hard and steady. Her shoulders were pulled back. She did not look like a scared victim anymore. She looked like a woman who survived the fire and learned how to burn things down. She looked down at her left hand. The massive square diamond was completely dry. It caught the harsh bathroom light, flashing like a warning sign. It was not just a fake prop for the cameras anymore. It was a crown. It was proof that she belonged to a world where absolute power was the only rule. Maya threw the paper towel in the trash. She unlocked the heavy metal door and walked out into the brightly lit hallway. She pushed the doors to the radar room open and stepped back into the dark, cold space. The chaos from earlier was mostly gone. The controllers were sitting back in their heavy chairs, completely focused on their screens. The green dots were moving smoothly again. The hack was just a terrifying memory. Marcus was standing by the coffee pot. He looked up when Maya walked in. He let out a long breath and shook his head. "I don't know what you did in that bathroom, Johnson, but your timing is lucky. The military IT guys just called. They said the hacking signal completely vanished, just cut off out of nowhere. The local police found an empty van parked 2 miles from here with a bunch of fried computer equipment inside. Whoever did it got spooked and ran." "That is good news, Marcus," Maya said. Her voice was perfectly calm. She knew there was no empty van. She knew exactly what the local police found, and she knew Declan paid them a massive amount of money to lie to the federal government about it. "Get back on your screen," Marcus ordered, rubbing his tired eyes. "We still have a massive backlog of flights to land before the storm breaks." Maya walked over to her station. Sarah looked up at her, her eyes red from crying earlier. "Are you okay, Maya? You look a little pale." "I am fine," Maya said softly. She sat down in her chair and grabbed her headset. "I am perfectly fine." For the next 2 hours, Maya did not miss a single beat. She guided the massive metal tubes out of the dark sky. She spoke clearly into her microphone, giving perfect directions. The pilots sounded exhausted, but they followed her orders without question. One by one, the green dots lined up on the radar screen and safely touched down on the wet runways. She saved hundreds of lives just an hour after ending 2. The contrast was crazy, but her mind felt incredibly sharp. When the clock on the wall finally clicked to midnight, the shift was over. Maya unplugged her headset and stood up. She grabbed her bag from the floor. She did not say goodbye to anyone. She just walked out of the dark room, rode the elevator down to the ground floor, and pushed through the heavy exit doors. The storm was finally dying down. The heavy rain had turned into a light, cold drizzle. The black SUV was idling by the curb, its headlights cutting through the dark fog. The driver stepped out immediately and opened the back door. But this time, something was different. The driver did not look straight ahead like a robot. He looked directly at Maya. He gave her a sharp, respectful nod, lowering his chin just a little bit. He knew. Everyone in Declan's inner circle knew what happened tonight. They knew the fake wife just ordered a hit on a rival boss. "Good evening, Mrs. Cross," the driver said quietly. "Good evening," Maya replied. She climbed into the warm, leather-scented back seat. The door shut with a heavy thud, sealing her inside the quiet car. The drive back to the city was fast. The streets were totally empty. Maya looked out the window, watching the streetlights blur together. Her heart started to beat a little faster as the SUV pulled into the underground parking garage of Declan's building. She took the private elevator up. She pressed her thumb to the scanner, and the silver doors slid open. Maya stepped into the massive penthouse living room. The lights were turned down low. The huge glass wall looked out over the dark, wet city. The air smelled strongly of expensive whiskey, dark cedar cologne, and something else. Something sharp and metallic. Declan was standing by the stone fireplace. He had not changed his clothes. He was still wearing the dark sweatpants and the tight black t-shirt he wore earlier in the office. But his clothes were no longer clean. The front of his black shirt was wet and dark. His knuckles were bruised, the skin split and angry red. He was holding a short crystal glass of whiskey in his right hand. He turned his head slowly, as Maya dropped her bag on the floor. His blue eyes were completely wild. They were dark, dangerous, and totally wide open. He looked like a predator that just finished a brutal hunt. He stared at her, completely still, waiting to see what she would do. He wanted her to see the blood. He wanted her to look at the violent reality of the choice she made. Maya did not run. She did not scream. She did not look away from him. She walked across the shining black marble floor. Her old sneakers made no sound. She stopped just 2 feet away from him. She could smell the blood now. It was mixed with the rain on his skin. "Is it done?" Maya asked. Her voice was low and completely steady. "It is done," Declan answered. His rough voice echoed in the quiet room. "My uncle will never threaten this family again. Troy and his mercenary are gone. The files are burned to ash. The police are cleaning up the mess and burying the bodies where no one will ever find them. Your secret is totally safe." Maya looked down at his bruised hands. "You did it yourself." "Yes," Declan said. He took a slow drink of his whiskey, never taking his eyes off her face. "I wanted to look them in the eyes when they died. I wanted them to know exactly why it was happening. I told them they made a massive mistake when they tried to corner my wife." Maya swallowed hard. The word wife sounded different when he said it this time. It wasn't a business term anymore. It was a claim. "Are you scared of me, Maya?" Declan asked. He lowered his glass. He took one slow step forward, invading her space. His massive chest almost brushed against hers. The heat coming off his body was intense. "You saw the ledger. You know what I am now. You know what I am capable of doing." Maya tilted her head up to meet his dark stare. "You told me you were a monster, but you are the only person in my entire life who actually protected me. You gave me back my home. You saved my job. You killed the men who wanted to destroy me." She reached out with her right hand. She did not hesitate. She pressed her palm flat against the center of his chest, right over his heart. She could feel it beating, hard and fast beneath the wet cotton of his shirt. "I am not scared of you, Declan," Maya whispered fiercely. "I am exactly where I belong." Declan let out a harsh, shaking breath. The control he was trying to keep completely snapped. He dropped the crystal glass. It hit the thick rug and rolled away, spilling dark whiskey over the floor. He didn't care. He raised both of his large, bruised hands and grabbed the sides of Maya's face. His grip was almost painfully tight, his thumbs pressing hard into her cheekbones. He didn't ask for permission. He crashed his mouth down onto hers. It was nothing like the kiss in the judge's office. This was not for the cameras. This was pure, dark desperation. He kissed her like a starving man. His lips were rough and demanding, forcing her mouth open. Maya gasped, and he immediately deepened the kiss, his tongue sweeping inside, tasting like strong whiskey and raw power. Maya didn't push him away. She grabbed the front of his wet shirt, her fingers curling tight into the fabric. She pulled him closer, kissing him back with the same wild, angry heat. All the tension, all the fear, all the adrenaline from the control tower exploded between them. Declan groaned, a deep, animal sound in the back of his throat. He shifted his grip, sliding one hand to the back of her neck, tangling his fingers in her messy dark hair. His other hand wrapped tightly around her waist, lifting her entirely off her feet. Maya wrapped her legs around his hips. He carried her across the living room without breaking the kiss. He backed her up against the massive glass window, pressing her body hard against the cold glass. The dark city lights of Seattle stretched out for miles behind them. He pulled back just an inch, both of them breathing hard, their chests heaving together. "You crossed the line tonight," Declan whispered roughly, his forehead resting against hers. His blue eyes burned into hers. "You ordered blood. You can't go back to being a normal girl who just guides airplanes. You are in this with me now, completely." "I don't want to go back," Maya breathed, looking at his bruised lips. "I want to rule the dark with you." A slow, vicious smile spread across Declan's face. "Good, because tomorrow night is the charity dinner. The entire board of directors will be there. My uncle's friends will be there. They are going to hear rumors about what happened tonight. They are going to look at you, trying to find a weakness. They are going to see if my new wife is soft enough to break." "Let them look," Maya said firmly. She reached up and touched the dark bruise on his jaw. "I will show them exactly who I am." "We will show them," Declan corrected her. He kissed her again, slower this time, branding her with his heat. "Tomorrow night, we walk into that ballroom and we take absolute control of this city. No more hiding, no more fake smiles." He set her down slowly on her feet. He didn't let go of her waist. He kept her close, his thumbs rubbing small circles on her hips. "Go take a shower," Declan ordered softly, his eyes dragging over her tired face. "Wash the work off you. Tomorrow is going to be the most important night of your life. You need to be ready to fight." "I am ready," Maya said. She stepped out of his arms. She walked down the wide hallway to her guest room. She didn't look back, but she could feel his eyes watching her every single step of the way. When she closed the bedroom door, she leaned against it, a wild smile spreading across her face. The weak, scared girl who cried in a church hallway was dead. The queen was finally awake. The gray morning light of Seattle spilled through the tall glass windows of the penthouse. Maya opened her eyes and stared at the white ceiling of the guest bedroom. She laid perfectly still under the heavy blankets, listening to the quiet hum of the city far below. It was the morning after she ordered a man to die. She waited for the panic to set in. She waited to feel the crushing weight of guilt that normal people were supposed to feel. But as she lifted her left hand and watched the massive square diamond catch the morning light, she only felt a deep, warm sense of peace. She threw the blankets off and walked into the attached bathroom. She washed her face and brushed her hair. When she walked out into the massive living room, Declan was standing by the stone fireplace, drinking his black coffee. He was already wearing a perfectly tailored dark navy suit. The bruises on his knuckles from last night were turning a dark, angry purple, but he did not try to hide them. He was talking on his cell phone, his voice a low, dangerous command. "I don't care what the police captain wants," Declan growled into the phone. "Tell him the wire transfer cleared this morning. The official story is a gas leak explosion at the motel. If any reporter asks questions, you handle it. Clean up the ash and bury the bones deep. Call me when it is done." He hung up the phone and slipped it into his pocket. He turned his head and looked at Maya. His cold blue eyes swept over her bare legs and the oversized gray t-shirt she was wearing. The dark, wild heat from their kiss last night was still burning right beneath the surface of his stare. "The police are paid off," Declan said simply. "Troy and my uncle are officially erased. The world is exactly the way I want it." "Good," Maya said, walking into the kitchen to pour herself a cup of coffee. She took a sip of the bitter liquid. "So what happens now? You said tonight is a war." "Tonight is the annual Cross Aeronautics Charity Gala," Declan said, walking over to the marble counter and trapping her against it with his tall body. He reached out and traced the line of her jaw with his bruised thumb. "Every single board member will be there. My uncle's old business partners will be there. They already know my uncle went missing last night. They are going to test us. A team of stylists is coming here in 1 hour to get you ready. You are going to wear the dress I picked out. You are going to show them that my wife is untouchable." Is your heart racing waiting to see Maya and Declan face down the Mafia board? Don't just cross your fingers and ask for a part 2 in the comments. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, as it helps the algorithm push more videos like this to you. Also, let me know where you are watching from, or rate this video 110 in the comments below. If you want to take absolute control of this story, join the exclusive Timeless K-Love membership on Gumroad. Our members don't just ask for the next chapter, they demand it. You get the exclusive power to decide which cliffhangers get resolved first. Support the channel by grabbing me a coffee or becoming a member through the link in the description and pinned comment, and take control of the romance. Now, let's get back to the story. The styling team arrived exactly an hour later. There were 3 of them, carrying heavy garment bags, makeup kits, and hot hair tools. They did not ask Maya any questions. They treated her with a nervous, quiet respect that told her they knew exactly who Declan was. For 2 hours, Maya sat in front of a brightly lit mirror while they worked. They pulled her dark hair back into a sleek, sharp twist that exposed her long neck. They painted her lips a deep, dark crimson and lined her eyes to make them look fierce and piercing. When they finally unzipped the garment bag to show her the dress, Maya's breath hitched in her throat. It was not a safe, polite dress. It was made of thick, heavy silk in a shade of dark blood red. It had a high neckline but plunged deep in the back, clinging tightly to every single curve of her body before flowing down to the floor. It was a dress made for a woman who wanted to command an entire room. Maya slipped the dress on and stepped into a pair of towering black heels. She walked out of the guest room and down the wide hallway. Declan was waiting by the private elevator. He turned around when he heard her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. He completely froze. His blue eyes darkened, dragging down the length of her body and back up to her painted red lips. He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. He didn't say she looked beautiful. He didn't offer a polite compliment. He just grabbed her hips and pulled her hard against his chest, bending his head to whisper roughly against her ear. "You look like a weapon," Declan breathed, the smell of his cedar cologne wrapping around her. "You look like you are going to burn my entire world to the ground." "I thought that was the plan," Maya whispered back, looking up into his dangerous eyes. "It is," Declan said. He stepped back, keeping one hand firmly on her lower back. He pressed his thumb to the elevator scanner. "Let's go show the wolves who actually owns the forest." The ride to the event hall was quiet. The black SUV drove through the busy streets of downtown Seattle. The wind was howling off the cold water of the bay, blowing trash across the sidewalks and shaking the streetlights. Maya looked out the tinted window. She wasn't nervous. The adrenaline from last night had hardened into a solid block of ice in her chest. The car pulled up to the grand entrance of a massive, historic hotel. Floodlights lit up the stone building. A long red carpet stretched from the curb to the heavy gold doors. Just like at the courthouse, a massive crowd of reporters and photographers was waiting behind velvet ropes. The driver opened the door. The freezing wind hit Maya instantly, but she did not shiver. Declan stepped out first, buttoning his suit jacket. He held his bruised hand out to her. Maya placed her hand in his and stepped out onto the red carpet. The cameras exploded. The bright white flashes were blinding, lighting up the dark, windy night. Declan, over here. Is it true your uncle stepped down from the board today?" "Maya, look this way. How does it feel to be the new Mrs. Cross?" Declan did not ignore them this time. He stopped right in the middle of the red carpet. He pulled Maya tight against his side, his arm wrapping around her waist like a steel band. He looked directly at the loudest reporter. "My uncle retired last night," Declan said loudly, his voice cutting clearly through the howling wind and the shouting crowd. "He decided the business was too dangerous for an old man. My wife and I are taking the company into a new, aggressive direction. That is the only statement I am making." He didn't wait for another question. He turned his head and looked down at Maya. He didn't care that 100 cameras were taking their picture. He leaned down and kissed her hard on the mouth, claiming her right there in front of the entire city. Maya kissed him back, letting her hand rest flat against his chest. When he finally pulled away, his eyes were burning. He guided her up the steps and through the heavy gold doors. The loud noise of the wind and the reporters was instantly completely cut off. The ballroom was massive. Huge crystal chandeliers hung from the painted ceiling, throwing warm, golden light over the crowd. Waiters in black suits carried silver trays of champagne. The room was packed with Seattle's richest and most dangerous people. Men in dark suits and women in diamonds stopped talking the second Declan and Maya walked through the doors. The music seemed to get quieter. Hundreds of eyes turned to stare at them. "Rule number 2 is officially dead," Declan whispered softly into her ear as they stood at the top of the grand staircase overlooking the room. "You don't have to fake a single smile tonight. If someone disrespects you, you don't look away. You look right through them." "I know how to handle bullies, Declan," Maya said smoothly. She kept her chin high. "I survived my adoptive family. These people are just wearing more expensive clothes." Declan let out a low, dark chuckle. He held his arm out, and Maya wrapped her hand around his bicep. They walked slowly down the carpeted stairs together. The crowd parted for them like water. No one dared to step in their way. Maya could hear the quiet, frantic whispers as they passed by. She caught pieces of sentences. They were terrified. They were looking at Declan like he was the devil, and they were looking at Maya like she was the devil's keeper. A group of 4 older men was standing near the center of the room. They were holding crystal glasses of whiskey. They did not look scared. They looked angry. They were the senior members of the board of directors, the men who used to take orders from Declan's uncle. Declan walked straight toward them. Maya kept her steps perfectly matched with his. The oldest man in the group, a heavy man with white hair and a thick gold watch, stepped forward. He forced a tight, fake smile onto his wrinkled face. "Declan, we were starting to wonder if you would show up, and this must be the new bride." "Arthur," Declan said coldly. He did not shake the man's hand. "This is my wife, Maya Cross." Arthur looked Maya up and down. His eyes were totally disrespectful, dismissing her in 2 seconds. "Yes, the air traffic controller. We saw the news. A very sudden wedding, Declan, and a very sudden disappearance of your uncle. The board is feeling very nervous about all these fast changes. We need stability, not wild behavior." "My uncle is gone, Arthur," Declan said, his voice dropping into a deadly, quiet threat. "And if the board is feeling nervous, they can sell their shares and get the hell out of my building, because I am the only one giving orders now." Arthur's face turned red. He gripped his whiskey glass tightly. He looked at Maya, trying to find a weak link. "And what does the little controller think about her husband threatening his oldest business partners? Are you ready for the kind of mess this family makes, little girl?" Maya didn't flinch. She didn't look at Declan for help. She let go of Declan's arm and took 1 step closer to Arthur. She was shorter than him, but the dark, cold look in her eyes made the old man actually take a half step backward. "I think you should watch your tone, Arthur," Maya said. Her voice was perfectly calm, smooth, and chilling. "I spent the last 5 years deciding which planes crash and which planes land. I am very comfortable with making life or death decisions. My husband just told you how things are going to work from now on. I suggest you listen to him, or you might find yourself retiring just as suddenly as his uncle did." The entire group of old men went totally silent. Arthur's mouth fell open in pure shock. He looked at Maya's cold eyes, and then he looked at the dark bruises on Declan's massive hands. The message was loud, clear, and absolutely terrifying. Declan reached out and placed his hand on the small of Maya's back. A dark, vicious smile spread completely across his face. He looked at Arthur, enjoying the old man's fear. "My wife and I are going to get a drink," Declan said smoothly. "Enjoy the party, Arthur. It might be your last one." Declan guided Maya away from the group, leaving the board members staring after them in completely stunned silence. As they walked toward the private VIP tables near the back of the room, Declan leaned down, his breath hot against her neck. "You are magnificent," he whispered roughly. "You just castrated the most powerful man on my board without raising your voice." "He thought I was weak," Maya said, her eyes scanning the room. She noticed how the other guests were now quickly looking away when she caught their eyes. "He thought I was just a prop." "They will never think that again," Declan promised. Declan kept his hand firmly on the lower curve of Maya's back as they walked away from Arthur. They moved through the crowded ballroom, heading toward the raised VIP section at the very back of the hall. The tables here were set apart by velvet ropes and guarded by men in dark suits who did not look like normal hotel security. These were Declan's men. They stood up straighter when he approached, parting immediately to let him and Maya through. A heavy, round table sat in the center of the VIP area. 2 men were sitting there, drinking dark liquor from crystal glasses. They were not old like Arthur, but they were not young either. They wore expensive suits, but they looked rougher around the edges. One had a thick scar cutting through his left eyebrow. The other had cold, dead eyes and thick, tattooed hands. Maya knew exactly who they were without Declan having to tell her. These were the men who ran the actual smuggling routes. These were the uncle's captains. "Victor, Silas," Declan said as he pulled out a chair for Maya. The 2 men stood up slowly. They did not smile. They looked at Declan, and then they locked their hard eyes on Maya. "Declan," the man with the scar, Victor, said. His voice sounded like gravel. "We were surprised to hear about your uncle's sudden retirement plan. He didn't say goodbye to us." "My uncle had a lot of things on his mind," Declan said smoothly, sitting down in the chair right next to Maya. He crossed his long legs and rested his arm on the back of her chair. His health was failing. He needed to step away before he made a fatal mistake. Now, sit down, both of you. Victor and Silas slowly sat back down. Silas, the man with the tattooed hands, leaned forward and rested his thick arms on the white tablecloth. He stared directly at Maya, completely ignoring Declan. "So this is the girl," Silas said. He did not sound impressed. He sounded like a man trying to figure out if he needed to pull a knife. "Arthur is an idiot, but he has a point. We move heavy cargo, Declan. We take massive risks every single night. We don't need a civilian sitting at the table, especially a girl who spends her days talking into a plastic headset." Declan's body went completely rigid. His bruised hand curled into a tight fist on the table. He was about to speak, to tear Silas apart, but Maya reached under the table and placed her hand flat on Declan's thigh. She squeezed once, a silent command for him to wait. She leaned forward, matching Silas's aggressive posture. She did not blink. She looked at the tattoos on his hands, then looked straight into his dead eyes. "You move heavy cargo," Maya said softly, her voice carrying clearly over the sound of the ballroom music. "That means you fly modified 737s into private strips late at night. You fly low to avoid the military radar, which means you burn twice as much fuel. You are entirely dependent on clear weather and blind spots." Silas narrowed his eyes. "What the fuck do you know about it?" "I know that your planes are flying through my sky," Maya answered coldly. "I know that when you enter the Seattle sector, I am the one looking at the screen. If I press 3 buttons on my keyboard, your plane gets tagged as a hostile, unidentified target. The Coast Guard scrambles 2 fighter jets, and you get forced to land at a federal base with the FBI waiting for you. Or, I can press a different button, and your plane completely vanishes from the system. You get a green light, a clear runway, and you make millions of dollars before the sun comes up." Victor shifted uncomfortably in his chair, glancing at Declan, but Declan was just watching Maya with a dark, proud smile. "Your uncle is gone," Maya continued, keeping her cold stare locked on Silas. "He didn't know how the sky worked. I do. So before you call me a civilian again, you need to remember exactly who is opening the door for you every night. If you disrespect my husband, or if you ever disrespect me, I will close that door. And I will let the feds lock you in a cage for the rest of your miserable life." Total silence fell over the heavy round table. Silas stared at her. His jaw tightened. He looked like he wanted to reach across the table and grab her, but he knew she was absolutely right. She held their entire operation in the palm of her hand. She was the absolute most valuable asset the family had ever acquired. Slowly, Silas picked up his crystal glass. He raised it in the air, tilting it toward Maya in a silent sign of respect. "Understood, Mrs. Cross. It is good to have you on the team." Victor quickly raised his glass too. "To the new direction," he agreed, his voice much more polite than it was 2 minutes ago. Maya did not smile. She just gave them a slow, sharp nod. Declan leaned closer to her, his lips brushing against her ear. "You are going to give me a heart attack," he whispered, his voice dark and thick with desire. "Stand up. Dance with me before I do something completely inappropriate right here at the table." Maya stood up, letting Declan lead her away from the VIP area. They walked down the short steps to the polished wooden dance floor in the center of the ballroom. A slow, heavy jazz song was playing. Several other rich couples were already dancing, but as soon as Declan and Maya stepped onto the floor, the other people naturally backed away, giving them plenty of space. Declan pulled her flush against his body. He wrapped his right arm tightly around her waist, and he grabbed her left hand with his bruised fingers, holding it up so the massive diamond ring caught the light of the chandeliers. Maya rested her free hand on his broad shoulder, sliding her fingers into the soft, expensive fabric of his suit jacket. "You just threatened my best smugglers," Declan said softly, staring down into her dark eyes as they slowly moved to the music. "They needed to know the rules," Maya replied easily. "They thought I was just a pretty distraction. I needed them to know that I hold the keys to their survival." "And you do," Declan agreed. He pulled her even closer until there was absolutely zero space between them. She could feel the hard muscle of his chest, the heat radiating off his skin. You took complete control of the room, Maya. My uncle ruled this family with fear and violence, but you just ruled them with pure, cold intelligence. They are terrified of you. Are you terrified of me? Maya asked, a small, genuine smile finally touching her red lips. I am obsessed with you, Declan answered honestly. His blue eyes darkened, stripping away the polite mask he wore for the crowd. I bought a contract because I needed a shield, but I ended up finding a queen. You are exactly where you belong. Maya rested her head against his chest. She listened to the steady, strong beat of his heart. She thought about her old life. She thought about the tiny, quiet house she used to live in. She thought about cooking cheap dinners for Troy, listening to him complain about his failures while she paid all his bills. It felt like a lifetime ago. It felt like a completely different person lived that life. She did not miss it. She did not miss being nice. She did not miss being the girl who always said sorry when other people made mistakes. I want to go home, Declan, Maya whispered against his suit jacket. I am tired of looking at these people. Declan's hand tightened instantly on her waist. Then we leave. He didn't wait for the song to finish. He stopped dancing, grabbed her hand, and led her straight off the floor. They did not stop to say goodbye to anyone. They walked past Arthur, past the reporters waiting outside the heavy gold doors, and straight to the waiting black SUV. The wind had died down, but a cold Seattle rain was falling perfectly straight from the dark sky. The driver held an umbrella for them, and they climbed into the warm, quiet back seat. The car pulled away from the curb, leaving the bright lights of the hotel behind. The ride back to the penthouse was totally silent. The tension in the car was so thick Maya could barely breathe. Declan sat close to her, his thigh pressing heavily against hers. He did not look out the window. He just looked at her, his eyes burning with a dark, demanding fire. The fake contract was a piece of garbage now. They both knew it. They broke every single rule the second she ordered him to kill Troy, and they completely destroyed the rest of the rules when he kissed her against the glass window. The SUV drove into the underground garage. Declan didn't wait for the driver to open the door. He shoved it open himself, grabbed Maya's hand, and pulled her toward the private elevator. They stepped inside. The silver doors closed. Before the elevator even started moving, Declan pushed her back against the mirrored wall. He grabbed the sides of her face and brought his mouth down on hers. The kiss was aggressive, hungry, and completely raw. Maya gasped, wrapping her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. She tasted the expensive whiskey on his tongue. She felt the rough bruises on his hands scrape against her jaw. The elevator shot upward, the speed making Maya's stomach drop, but Declan kept her pinned against the wall. He kissed her neck, his teeth gently scraping against her sensitive skin, making her let out a soft moan. You are mine, Declan growled against her skin. No more fake rules, no more guest room, you belong in my bed. Take me there, Maya breathed, her fingers tangling in his dark hair. The elevator doors slid open. The penthouse was completely dark, lit only by the city lights shining through the massive glass wall. Declan didn't turn on a single light. He picked her up, exactly like he did the night before, and carried her down the wide hallway. But this time, he didn't stop at the guest room. He kicked the heavy wooden door of his master bedroom open. The room was massive. A huge king-sized bed sat in the middle of the floor, covered in dark gray sheets. Declan set her down gently at the edge of the bed. He stepped back, reaching up to loosen his tie. He pulled it off and threw it on the floor. He took off his suit jacket and unbuttoned his white shirt, exposing his chest. Maya stood up slowly. She reached around to the back of her heavy red dress and pulled the zipper down. The thick silk fell to the floor, leaving her standing in the dark room, completely exposed to him. Declan stopped moving. He stared at her, his breathing turning heavy and ragged. He looked at her like she was the most valuable, beautiful thing he had ever seen in his entire life. You are going to be the absolute death of me, Declan whispered. He closed the distance between them, wrapping his arms tightly around her bare skin, pulling her down onto the dark bed. The storm continued to beat against the glass windows of the penthouse, but inside the room the world outside completely disappeared. They did not sleep. They spent the entire night tearing away the last pieces of the walls between them. Declan was demanding, rough, and completely possessive, but he treated her like she was made of pure glass. He worshipped her. He made sure she knew that she was not a hostage, not a contract wife, but the absolute center of his dark, violent universe. When the sun finally started to rise over Seattle, painting the gray clouds with streaks of pale pink light, Maya was lying on her stomach, her head resting on Declan's broad chest. His heavy arm was draped over her back, keeping her locked securely against him. He was awake, gently running his fingers through her tangled dark hair. "You have to go to work today," Declan said softly, his voice a low rumble in his chest. "Marcus is going to wonder where his best controller is." Maya smiled against his skin. She dragged her hand over his chest, feeling the hard muscle beneath her fingers. "I don't think I am going to work today. Let Marcus handle the radar himself." Declan shifted, looking down at her with a raised eyebrow. "Are you quitting your job?" "No," Maya said firmly. She propped herself up on her elbow, looking down into his face. "I love my job. I love the power of sitting in that tower and telling the sky what to do. But I am the wife of a billionaire CEO now. I think I deserve a few sick days." Declan let out a deep, rolling laugh. The sound filled the quiet bedroom. It was the first time she had ever heard him truly laugh. It wasn't cruel or mocking. It was real. "You can take as many sick days as you want, Maya," he said, reaching up to pull her face down for a soft, slow kiss. "You own the company, you own the planes, you own me." Maya kissed him back, the heavy diamond ring on her left hand pressing against his jaw. She survived the fire. She walked through the absolute worst moments of her life, and she came out on the other side stronger, harder, and completely untouchable. Her old life was completely gone. The quiet, scared girl who let other people walk all over her was dead and buried. In her place was a woman who knew exactly how to get what she wanted. She was the queen of the dark. And as long as she had Declan standing beside her, nobody in the entire world would ever be able to bring her down again.